Hello and welcome to Net Talks. I'm Joseph Jude, Chief Technology Officer of Net Solutions.
Hi, I am Harish Verma, working as a senior technical architect with Net Solutions.
Hello everyone, I'm Amit Manchanda. I'm a senior technical project manager with Net Solutions with over 18 plus years
Thank
experience.
you, Harish and Amit, for joining us. SOC stands for Systems and Organization Control. Probably it is the most common security standard for enterprise applications. SOC certification puts a stamp of approval on the organizational control on security, hence, it builds trust with their customers. SOC measures three parts of the organizations: people, process, and technology. As a technology company which designs, develops, and monitors customers' applications, we come on the third pillar of the certification. Recently, we were involved with two of our enterprise clients to get their applications SOC2 certified. Three of us are here to talk about how we designed and developed these applications, plus how we conducted their BCP so as to measure the availability for SOC2 certifications. Harish, can you please talk to me about the project and we'll go from there?
Sure, Joseph. So the client which we are talking about, so we work with this client who deals with the licensing part of the applications. So it involves deal management, disclosure management, royalties, and then the payments. So we get the information from the customers and we process the data. There is personal information of the users as well, and we make sure that it is stored safely and it is transmitted in a secured manner as well.
I can understand, Harish, there is both payment details and the personal details of their customers. So security will be key part of this particular application. Thank you.
Yes.
Amit, what about yourself?
Sure, Joseph. So basically, the client for which we are working on is into manufacturing of cleaning products, and they have been into business for more than 60 years now. So we at Net Solutions help them to build a digital solution that validates the cleaning protocols and evidence-based technology. So that helps in revealing the contamination on surfaces. It could be like a desk, it could be any other physical surface. So we also help them build a successful iPad application that allows the facility teams to plan, conduct, track, and report site assessments regarding the quality of the cleaning services. So we have also built several reports and dashboards that help in communicating results for monitoring, feedback, and continuous improvements.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
Harish, can you talk to me about what are the different levels of SOC certifications and what do they mean?
Yes, Joseph. So, like we were talking about SOC, so System and Organization Control. So, they provide or they provide a guide for three types of different certifications. They are SOC1, SOC2, and SOC3. SOC1 is mainly applicable to your organization if you are dealing with the financial data of your customers. And then SOC2 is basically about security, like we were talking about. So controls on whatever controls we have applied to the security of the data that we have collected and the systems that are in place. Now, both of these reports are generated for the auditor, so they need not be necessarily shared with the public. So you have those audits and you share those reports, and then there is a registered CPA who certifies your give you a certification. SOC3 is more mainly a marketing tool. So organizations who are SOC2 certified, they can get SOC3 certification, and then they can publish on their public websites to claim that they are secure enough, and it's basically a marketing tool for them.
Okay, thanks, Harish. Amit, you have been involved in this particular application from ground up.
Right, Joseph.
Uh, can you talk to me how we took care of SOC from the design itself, and also now that you have been involved for quite some time, what would you do differently if you were to start designing from today with everything that you already know?
Understood. So, Joseph, if I go back 3, 4 years back when the application started, I don't think the SOC was in the picture in terms of any plans. So, but I think the basic engineering processes that we follow at Net Solutions, they really helped us to do the groundwork of SOC compliance. So, some of the artifacts like the security, privacy, availability, all of these things were actually covered as part of the SDD document which we prepare for any application. So the technical implementations were already there in how before we went into the SOC process. So they were already taken care through that process. But if you talk about were there some things that we had not factored into? Yes, there were few items. So there are certain requirements from the infra perspective, like the backup policies, the monitoring tools like PRTG or something similar, the logging mechanism. Those were not initially factored into. So we kept on adding all the requirements that we had not factored into earlier into the application, so that that attestation journey is fine tuned and we are able to go through that process. You
Okay.
talked about is there anything which we could have, which we would do differently? Yes, I think there are certain processes that we need to follow in terms of sharing the evidences which you need to capture regularly. It
Hmm.
can't happen that overnight you generate all those evidences somehow, right? So you need to start tracking them regularly. The auditing teams needs to be shared those artifacts at a periodicity of, let's say, a monthly or a bi-weekly process. So you need to keep track of those and keep on sharing those and obviously create those in parallel.
Okay.
I think one of the other additions I would like to add is that sometimes there are business requirements that lead to certain changes in your application. You may add few new components, you may add new requirements.
Hmm.
So all of that also needs to be kept documented and your artifacts needs to be updated in accordance to the changes that the business team is asking you to do in the application.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
So it
Okay.
all needs to be
Uh,
in sync.
yes, very true. Harish, would you want to add anything to whatever Amit has talked about?
Yeah, maybe I'll continue from where Amit left. So yes, so the important point is obviously, the earlier you start keeping compliance in mind,
Hmm.
because whenever you are working on designing or developing a secure application, so you have to start early. Later on, if you're working on few things, then it may take more time as compared to if you start early. Then when we you start keeping the any of the security compliance in mind, for example SOC, so you keep in mind the lessons or the compliance list or the checklist that you can follow. So for example, whenever you are designing any application, so you have to make sure that you are managing the access controls on the system, whether it is the
Hmm.
logical data or the physical devices. So you have to make sure that the controls are in place so that only authorized access is allowed. Then comes the change management. So whenever you are working on the change management, so you work on your CI/CD pipelines, you work on your DevOps. So you make sure that your pipelines are in place for each and every environment, so that whenever you want to deploy something on your production environment, in case a disaster struck, so you know that you have the latest software and the latest data with you. And then you should have
Hmm.
your backup policies in place for your file systems, for your data. So you should be knowing all these points. So if you are covering your bases on that, then it helps a lot later on as well. So your compliance or your auditing through that process, it'll be really helpful.
Thanks, sir. So, if I were to summarize what you said, probably following a shift left policy of that security and including other things that we normally take into account, performance and everything, probably that helps the team lot better. And to sum up what Amit said, having an engineering process which already takes care of that SDD and the DevOps and the 12-factor methodology and all of those kinds of stuff, it takes care of implementing that SOC controls from early on rather than as a
Right.
patch at a later point in time.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Now let's so this we talked about design and development. Let's shift to the BCP procedures that we conducted. Harish, would it be possible for you to walk me through the BCP procedure and how you prepared our side of the team for BCP?
Sure, Joseph. So BCP, Business Continuity Plan. So it is usually, a set of guidelines where these guidelines help you in case of a disaster so that you
Hmm.
can recover or your system can recover as quickly as possible, or you can prevent your system going down for the significant amount of time so that there is no business or operation side of loss for you. Now, a plan is as successful if you train your people, if you follow those guidelines. If you're not following those guidelines, any plan you create, it's a failure. So you have to make sure that first you analyze your business set of requirements, and then your parts of the business application, all those functional areas, you make sure that you are aware of all those functional areas, and then the criticality of those operations. Now, one operation or one area can be very business critical. So that means it has to be restored on priority as compared to the
Hmm.
other areas. So you need to define all those analysis steps while you are creating a business continuity plan. Then you have to involve all those stakeholders which are part of your crisis management team. Those can be your business users, those can be your infrastructure guys, those can be your developers. So this whole team constitutes of those people. So you need to make sure that you have a proper team in place, you have roles and responsibilities assigned, and then you have the steps mentioned clearly that okay, this is what we should be doing, and this order we should be doing, and these are the validation steps that we'll be performing to make sure that anything and everything that we are doing as part of BCP process, and it is a successful one. Now, when you're creating your BCP, then there should be checklists. You can create one checklist, which usually we call a run book or a playbook. There you have all the detailed steps, you have the timings as well. So whenever you are doing that, so you have to make sure that there is a success criteria attached to it. That means you
Hmm.
can, at the end of that exercise, you can say that whether that step that you performed was a success or not, because it will derive all your following actions as well. Now, when we are working on a BCP, there are two important terms. One is RTO and then other is RPO. RTO is your recovery time objective and RPO is your recovery point objective. Now, recovery time objective is that defines the time that you take to restore back your systems before significant loss to your business, and recovery point objective is the amount of data lost that is there when your system is actually down and you can bear that loss without again significant loss to your business operations. So this, when we are doing this, so we keep all these things in mind, we practice and practice, and then this whole plan is shared with all the stakeholders, and we keep on updating that. It's a continuous process, it's not a one time process. You create the plan and you follow that and make it a practice.
Lovely. I like what you said. The plan is only good if we train everybody on that particular plan and that is executable. Otherwise, it just worth that particular piece of paper, probably.
Yes.
Thanks, Harish. Amit, you also conducted BCP. Is there anything that you would like to add, or anything that you did differently than what Harish talked about?
So, Joseph, at a high level, I think the planning and the execution has been pretty much similar, like what Harish talked about. So, we also created a document that chalked out all the activities that we are going to carry out on the day of the PCP drill. We talked out all the responsibility, all the key stakeholders that are going to perform those activities. We also defined what is the sequence of those activities, like where to start, how we are going to conduct each activity. When the execution actually happened on the day of the BCP drill, we took notes of each activity and took time
Hmm.
and recorded the time it took for each activity, like against the time we planned for each activity. So once the drill was conducted successfully, we did a retrospective to identify were there any findings, were there any gaps for what we had planned initially. So what all learnings we can take care in place for the next BCP drill, or whenever we have to actually implement that in our project. So we took notes of that. Post that, we also submitted an execution summary of all the steps that we executed, plus all the artifacts which we took before the drill and after the drill, to ensure that the drill is actually successful.
True. Yeah. One of the things that I've always seen, and which is what we follow and which I insist that we follow, is not only the planning part of it, not only the run book that we prepare as a plan, but also the retro that happens so that we can improve
Mm.
upon whatever that we have done. There's a continuous improvement because BCP, that routine, is not one time, because it
Right.
checks the availability for SOC2 certification. This needs to be continuously done. So then, when we have done a retro, that helps us to improve on the next iteration and subsequent iterations. So thank you. Thanks, Amit. So let's go to, so we talked about the planning and then what happens. Let's go to that day of the BCP, conducting that BCP. So Amit, you already talked about some of the retros. So I would want to hear some of the retros that you have done, but I want to go back to the beginning of the day.
Mm.
How does that day looks like? When do you start? How do you start? Amit, do you want to start answering that?
Sure, sure. So basically, we have set a particular schedule. A time is decided when we are all going to meet on that particular day. There is a ticket raised that there is a disaster or some kind of a event that has happened, due to which
Hmm.
the infrastructure or the application is not available. So we are trying to simulate an actual scenario, or that event would trigger, how we are going to respond to that scenario. So everybody comes onto a common bridge. We all, as team members who are supposed to be part of that drill, we all collectively join on that bridge, and we start going through all the activities. So we declare, yes, there has been a disaster, there has been a downtime now, so we need to start preparing for that. So immediately we start the execution process, taking up all the previous backups which we have taken regularly, and trying to simulate how we would actually respond to that event if that happens.
Okay. Harish, how did your day look like? How long did it took? And can you share some knowledge on that?
Sure, Joseph. Actually, we are, supporting two applications. They have their mobile counterparts as well. So in turn, four applications. So RTO for us in this case was 24 hours. And that means you have to start collecting your evidences. You have to perform all the activities that are there in the run book. You have to make the new system up and working, and then you have to collect the evidences again, compare it, and then make sure that the system is working as it was working in the before scenario. Now, because both of the teams are in different time zones, common time was agreed between multiple teams or multiple stakeholders, and we started early time of the US, so that means we'll be having a more overlapping period as compared to if we start midday or something like that. Now, so steps. So we started by scheduling a meeting. All the key stakeholders were invited. So everyone was prepared. They were ready. They knew what they have to do. So business and QC team, they started collecting those evidences, and then uh, each team performed their activities. The infrastructure team, they created the required infrastructure and restored the data and the file backups. The DevOps team, they ran their pipelines. They made all their configuration changes. They started their jobs. So once everything is done, self-validation is done. That means the systems are in place, and then this is moved to the QC and the business validation. So once this is done, so we create the evidences, or we store the evidences again, and then a report is generated for the auditors. So claiming that this is how our systems look like and all that. And all these activities for both the systems took us close to 5 hours. So in 5 hours, we
Hmm.
were able to perform each and every step, record everything, verify everything, and generate the report as well.
Wonderful, fantastic. Amit, you talked about some of the retros. So I would be keen to know. Maybe can you share one or two of this from your retro?
Sure. So one of the key findings was that we had set a scheduled time for our testing of the environment. But when we actually went into the testing activities, we found that we took about an hour more than what we had planned for. When we did the retro, we found out that we ran instead of running the smoke test cases, we were doing a detailed regression round, right? Which
Hmm.
meant that we were covering a lot many test cases than probably we should have intended for. So the
Hmm.
plan it took us was close to, let's say it took us 3 hours instead of considering 2 hours. So ideally we should have done that activity in 2 hours. So the learning for us was that we should focus on the key business requirements or the smoke test, as is we can't go into a detailed round of testing, right? Obviously, you need to focus on your smoke test to ensure that the system is up and running, compare the data obviously, and see give a go ahead. So that was one of the learnings we got from our BCP.
Great.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Uh, Thank you, Harish. Thank you, Amit, for sharing your knowledge on how to design and develop a SOC compliant application, as well as how to run a BCP procedure as part of evaluating the availability for SOC2 applications. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for watching our Net Talks. If you have any requirement for developing enterprise applications, we would love to talk to you. Thank you.